Good evening, ghouls and fiends. Welcome once again to another edition of the Ministry of Horror. I'm your host, Tez, and this is the final recording for 2025. Now, it has been quite the year. We have generally kept up with an episode a week. We've had the odd live show that's returned, not on a semi-regular basis, let's be honest, but we did start, I think it was probably this year, we did start bringing back watch parties. Watch parties are one of the things that's sort of gone because that function in Twitch had dropped. And so the focus has then sort of been, they were a lot of fun. Is there a way that we can do it without it going through the add-on functions within Twitch? And yeah, we found a way. It's something that I want to return to doing a bit more of. I was messing around with my microphone settings, so hopefully this sounds okay. I'm not going to find out till the end because hey, I don't do testers or anything. But Twitch, we've done the odd Twitch here and there. It's something where do I look further into that platform? You know, we've got a steady, small but steady number of followers on there, but I don't know. Maybe not. Who knows? Anyway, we're repping Michael Myers. I'm repping some more of my American merch that I don't think I've actually worn on the show yet. This is a Halloween 2, I believe, official top from Hot Topic. So I'm going to have to just make sure that I stop just doing a show dressed whatever I'm normally. I'm just normally like a Gymshark, you know, Gymshark sweats. I'm actually going to, you know, put the effort in and wear my other lounge around the house wares, which are normally horror related. But of course, the big thing this year was getting married in America to my lovely wife, Victoria. Victoria, who you may know from 90 Slay Fiance. We are going to be recording a new bonus podcast. No longer can call it 90 Slay Fiancés. We're not fiancés anymore. We're married. But later on this week or this weekend, we are going to go and watch the new Anaconda film. We're going to talk about that. We're going to review it together, and we're also going to review a creature feature that she loves that I've only recently rewatched for the first time in 20 odd years. Lake Placid. I had to think for a second. I was going to say Lake Mungo. No, I don't think she'd watch Lake Mungo, to be honest. So yes, that brings me on to Patreon. So I'm going to just mention Patreon once per show. At the very start of the show, we're doing a bit of a soft relaunch on Patreon. I've got to give a shout out to our day one followers, of course, the Gruff. Definitely gets a shout out every episode. And we've also got JP and Bericles. I've sort of reviewed the levels that we have and the sort of things that we can offer, and we have a plan. We have a plan now, basically coming from now, of how we're going to build up that platform to make it worthwhile, and also to thank people for their support, because at the end of the day, you know, it helps keep the show going. So no pressure, just cool if you want to support the show. There we go, patreon.com/ministry of horror. So that's the one plug per podcast that I'm going to be doing. YouTube, we're getting some decent views on the shorts. Really enjoying that. TikTok, of course, we've hit now over 1,000 followers. Thank you so much. If you follow the TikTok, you know, it's just been, this is the year where we've gone from sitting at around 35 to 50 followers to, you know, I remember us getting to over 100 and what big deal that was. I remember us getting to 250 and 500 and 900 and being at 900 for a little while, and it's just cool to see it growing, and it's really nice, you know, because a lot of the time I'm just doing recommendations, or if you like this film, check these out, or if you like the Shudder platform or you're thinking about the Shudder platform, hey, check this out. So I should mention, you know, that I now have links, so check out the link in the bio for affiliates. If there's particular films that are some of my favorites, you can click on them, and as an Amazon affiliate, whatever the exact term is, I probably should remember, I do earn from purchases via the clicks, or from joining a trial via the clicks. So I just have to make that transparent, but that also helps out the show. So just consider that if you're thinking about Shudder or Arrow Player. Give it a click, get a free trial, buy my link, and I get some bunts out of it, which is always nice for me. This isn't the whole show, isn't a plug, don't worry. But yeah, it's been a nice kind of growth year for the Ministry of Horror, and long may that continue into 2026. So, I suppose, gaming news. I should mention Alan Wake 2. I'm finally on the final stage of that. I am in the end game, so I think I should have that complete in another couple of hours. It's been really good. I'm glad that I have stuck with it. I mean, there's been a long period of times where I sort of dropped out of it, but I am glad that I've kind of stuck with it now, and we should be finishing that very, very soon. Also, kind of physical media releases. I'm going to be really kind of getting into my horror curating my collection. So I've recently got a couple of Blu-ray 4Ks, one of which I put on my socials, which is the unboxing for Final Destination Bloodlines. Love that film this year, and there's a really nice Steelbook 4K edition. But also, because we've got 28 years later, The Bone Temple coming out in the next month or so, I kind of figured I wanted to add to the collection the 28 years later Steelbook 4K release. I enjoyed the film when I saw it when it came out. I wanted to add it to the collection. But one of the things that's going to be changing a bit on the show is I am going to be adjusting a little bit the Ministry of Horror HQ. I'm going to finally figure out, even if it means I'm crammed in a bit, I'm finally going to figure out how to get some space in here to put some casing up, to put my films in the office. I've always enjoyed having my horror collection, not even like on display, but just where I can see instantly, like, oh yeah, I fancy giving this a watch, fancy giving that a watch. And unfortunately, because space is kind of limited, and when you move all your stuff from one place that's just for you into a place that is shared, you have to kind of limit what goes where. And so for a long time, my horror collection, my film collection, but it's predominantly horror, has been in cupboards, in the living room. But no, I needed to change something. So by the next show, we should have some shelving. We should have films on display. I'm thinking a shelf for my Second Sight and Arrow limited editions, shelf for 4K UHDs, 4K Blu-rays, I should say, steelbooks, and then, you know, who knows? We alphabetize it by film title, by director, whatever. That's something we can revisit. But in line with that, I have sort of been looking at ways that I can keep adding to the collection without financially putting myself in the ground, because it's very easy to buy a few films and then suddenly think, where's my money all gone? So I have a little plan for that, and if people do want to jump in on that plan for the coming year of how to stick to a physical media budget but make a budget that works for you, reach out to me on socials. Reach out and you know, maybe I can share what I've put together, or had some help putting together. You know, because it may be of help to you. A way to sort of challenge yourself of adding to your collection, but sensibly, without without screwing the wallet over. But yeah, that's kind of it for the preamble. I mean, this is a jam-packed show, but we're going to try and keep it to a good time. I say that every time, but no, we're going to keep the shows to a concise time that doesn't rag on for ages, because it is just me talking at the end of the day. And I imagine that probably gets quite boring sometimes. I get bored of my own voice. You may well do too. Hopefully, not too soon. Click like, share, subscribe, follow, all of that good stuff, whatever platform you are listening or watching this on. For today's Jam-Packed Show, we've got a little bit of horror news. We're not going to spend too much time on the horror news. We have some reviews. I've watched The Jester 2, watched House on Eden, and also Shelby Oaks. Two sort of found footage films, but more importantly made by YouTubers. We're going to talk about how the YouTuber to filmmaker crossover works. Is it successful? Is it not? Who stands out? Who falls way short? But the main thing is, this is the last show of 2025, and what do we do every year to lesser and lesser levels of preparation? We have the annual Ghoulie Awards. So I've got a couple of categories, or 3 or 4 categories that I've sort of half-assed prepared. I'm going to talk about the best and worst of 2025. We have also one final thing. Finally got around to starting a Ministry of Horror Discord. So you may have heard me mention Discord a few times over the years, but it is a platform that has semi-regular discussions on the show, on upcoming trailers, etc. But it's been difficult to advertise it because we have been a channel underneath the overarching channel of the Wrestling Arena. People don't know the Wrestling Arena was a wrestling podcast that used to be called the Ministry of Slam. I had been a guest a few times on that show before then being a co-host a couple of times. And that then led to me getting given the show the opportunity to put out on their network the Ministry of Horror, as they knew I was a big horror fan and I could talk about horror for till the cows come home. I eventually became a regular co-host on the Ministry of Slam before it transitioned its name to the Wrestling Arena. There were then host changes. It went on hiatus before then being brought back for a limited run. Main point is, for a long time, that show hasn't been active, and the Discord, other than the Ministry of Horror subchannel, hasn't been active. So I just thought, after quite a long time, I need to just go ahead and create a Ministry of Horror Discord channel. It's a way for people to interact on a regular basis, share the books that they're reading, share the trailers of films that they think look interesting, to create some discussion, talk about horror video games, just talk about general horrorness. So reach out to me on socials if you would like an invite to the Discord. I generally hear it's not a good idea to just put Discord links out in the open. I don't really know why. I don't really know enough about Discord, but if you would like to join the Ministry of Horror Discord, drop me a message on socials. I believe I also have an email address, which I think is ministryofhorror666@gmail.com. That's ministryofhorror666@gmail.com. Anyway, that is all the preamble guff out the way. Let's jump into some horror news. I really do need to find that jingle again, but maybe I need to make my own jingle. We're not Wrestling Arena. We're not Ministry of Slam. So briefly on the horror news, all this comes from bloodydisgusting.com as per usual. Mike Wilson writes up, Konami planning to have a yearly release for new Silent Hill entries. The successes of Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill F are still not lost on Konami. In fact, according to series producer Moto Okamoto, the publisher now aims to release a new title every year. As part of its year-end coverage, Japanese gaming website 4Gamer interviewed 194 Japanese developers, or 194 Japanese developers, asking each one their ambitions for 2026. When asked by 4Gamer, Okamoto stated that with the Silent Hill series getting back on track, Konami's goal is for a new Silent Hill game, one per year. Following the release of Silent Hill 2 in October 2024, we were able to deliver Silent Hill F in September 2025, and the Silent Hill series has begun to get back on track. Including both announced and unannounced titles, we're aiming for a release pace of about one title per year. I'm not sure how much of that we'll be able to realise, but I'll continue to do my best as producer of the Silent Hill series. Ideally, we'd like to keep excitement around the Silent Hill series going at all times. We're working hard to share new updates, so I'd appreciate it if you could wait just a little longer. So that is great news. I think Silent Hill is really coming back in a big way. So we've got the return to the cinematic world with Christopher Gans, director in the first film, coming back with Return to Silent Hill, which looks to be an adaptation of Silent Hill 2. The images and trailer have had sort of semi-mixed reception. It does look a bit like the costumes are a bit too cosplay heavy than cinematic adaptation, but visually I think it actually does look quite good. Overall, take out that element. I can't say enough about the too much about the acting because the trailer doesn't really give too much away, but in terms of the landscape, the setting, it looks pretty on point, I would say. And Silent Hill 2, I still need to finish it. I think I almost need to probably watch a bit of a let's play of the section I'm on just to get me back on track. I'm still in the prison. I'm still trying to find the various weights. I still don't really know where I'm going. I'm still very lost. But I have recently started to watch the RKG series on Silent Hill 2. I'd seen a few clips that were very funny. So getting a bit back into a bit more of RKG. I do think... I don't know if I'll ever return to the Elden Ring playthrough that they had, just because like some of the episodes are like an hour and a half, 2 hours plus. It's just a long time to be watching people play a game, especially if they're on a boss for a long time. It doesn't quite have the some of the banter magic of the earlier seasons, but they're doing a very complete version of that game. But Silent Hill series they've done for Silent Hill 2, from what I've seen so far, is pretty funny. So Silent Hill 2 appears to be quite a success. I have enjoyed what I've played of it. Silent Hill F, I've dipped into that. I got a bit stuck. I got a bit stuck and I gave up quite quickly. So who knows if I'll jump back into that world. But it's good that each game is quite distinct and unique. And it's not just a case of, oh, but this isn't in Silent Hill. Well, yeah, but Silent Hill is more metaphysical type location in terms of individual pain and remorse and guilt and all of that stuff. So yeah, who cares? Who cares if it's in a different continent? But yeah, a new game each year. I know we're getting the Silent Hill remake, which I'm very excited about because I've been itching to jump back into that world for a long time, and I've only recently sort of talked myself out of trying to get a retro PS1 console, or rebuy a PS2 and get a copy of the game, because the game is the cheapest you can get it is probably about £70 up to like 160, £200. It's very expensive for a game that I imagine I would find very difficult to play in 2025. The old visuals probably wouldn't be as terrifying as they were for when I was a child to how I am now. But yeah, a remake, bring it on. Next in the news, Stranger Things series finale trailer revisits the past ahead of one last battle. Megan Navarro writes, "I need you to fight one last time." Hopper tearfully tells Eleven in the trailer for the Stranger Things series finale. The trailer is available online now, which only gives the briefest teasers of the finale. Instead, it looks to the past to highlight all the hard-fought battles the party has won so far. The final episode debuts on Netflix on December 31st at 5 p.m. PT, 8 p.m. ET. The last season is set in the fall of 1987. Hawkins is scarred by the opening of the rifts, and our heroes are united by a single goal: find and kill Vecna. But he has vanished, his whereabouts and plans unknown. Complicating their mission, the government has placed the town under military quarantine and intensified its hunt for Eleven, forcing her back into hiding. There's a few more bits and bobs there, but yeah, I won't really go into spoiler territories here, but the first 4 episodes of season 5 of Stranger Things I thought were excellent. The not really a needle drop moment, but the reveal at the end of episode 4 I thought was spot on, perfect. Really liked what they did there. The following 3 episodes for volume 2 of season 5, ooh, mixed bag. And I'm not talking about the revealing moment in episode 7. I mean, who cares about that? Like, in terms of, when I say who cares, I mean who cares in terms of that being a big deal. Like, we knew that was coming for quite a long time. It's a big moment in a character's arc. It's a big moment in a person's arc. And you have to remember this is the 80s as well, and I'm probably giving away a little bit here, but I think it's very obvious, especially with social media. I don't think that is the big negative that some people are making it out to be. It does seem to be getting review bombed a bit. What I would say is these 3 episodes, pacing wise, there's just a few issues. There's a whole period of the storyline with Nancy and Will's brother, Jonathan. I always forget his name. Nancy and Jonathan, where they're stuck in a room for quite a lot. It seems like a really long time. We do get some developments with Dustin and Joe Keery's character. God, I'm terrible with names. But there's some progression there. That's good. But there's also quite a few moments where the characters are all just like, "Oh, we're stuck. What are we going to do here? This is an awful situation." Then someone goes, wait a minute. I've just seen something off in the distance, and that's made me think, actually, I've got a plan to get around the whole thing. And it's one of those things that's not new to Stranger Things, but it just felt quite evident in these 3 episodes because it just seemed to happen quite a few times. Quite a few late saves that don't necessarily make sense. I don't think that affects my enjoyment of the series, but I do think if you're looking at Volume 1 and Volume 2 of the season as 2 separate entities of the overarching story, Volume 1 is much stronger, I would say, personally. And then finally, adjacent to Stranger Things news, the Duffer Brothers, creators of Stranger Things, confirm the Talisman Netflix adaptation is no longer happening. Megan Navarro writes, Stephen King may be working on the third novel for The Talisman, but we have bad news for the long gestating adaptation from Stranger Things creators Matt and Ross Duffer. The Duffer Brothers confirmed to CBR in an interview for that their adaptation of The Talisman, initially reported in 2021, is no longer moving forward. Ross Duffer told the outlet, Sadly, Talisman is no longer at Netflix, so we're not involved. He continued, When I interned, when I was really, back in college at Kennedy Marshall, I remember reading, I think it was a movie script for Talisman. So it's been in development forever, so I'm sorry that we were not the ones to break the curse. Published in 1984 and written by Stephen King and Peter Straub, the fantasy epic novel is one of the few King stories that has not yet been adapted for the film or television screens. This is despite Steven Spielberg owning the rights to the book since the 80s, with various planned adaptations taking different forms over the years. The Duffer Brothers were set to team up with Spielberg, with Netflix producing alongside Amblin Entertainment, but the creators recently set up a new deal with Paramount and have set their exit date with Netflix for April 2026. In The Talisman, Jack Sawyer, 12 years old, is about to begin a most fantastic journey, an exalting, terrifying quest for the mystical talisman, the only thing that can save Jack's dying mother. But to reach his goal, Jack must make his way not only across the breadth of the United States, but also through the wondrous and menacing parallel world of the territories. Goes on from there. The Talisman is one of my did not finishes. I've got it on my Kindle. I do tend to prefer to read physical books to Kindle, but Kindle is very convenient. I'll be taking the Kindle away for New Year's. We're off for a little trip together for a few days, so I'll be taking the Kindle with me. But yeah, I wasn't that interested in it. I don't know if it's because I don't really read that much fantasy, and this is a bit more fantasy than horror, or if it was the world, or what. But yeah, or maybe it was Peter Straub's writing. I don't really know how they split the writing. I don't really know how you co-write a book, because then whose voice are you kind of hearing more? Is it story? I don't know. But I didn't really hit with that. So yeah, The Talisman, not one for me. That is it for the horror news. Let's jump now into some reviews. Okay, first up in the reviews, I watched on Shudder, one of their recent releases, The Jester 2. So I believe I reviewed on the show whenever it came out. I think it was last year or earlier this year, 2025 that is, The Jester. I did not enjoy it. I thought it was really poorly written, incredibly cheap, really just kind of going for that. It's a masked killer that's charismatic. Hey, like Art the Clown. People love Art the Clown, right? It wasn't very good. But The Jester 2 landed on Shudder, and I kind of figured, okay, this saves me a few coin. I already pay for Shudder. Let's give it a go. Let's get some films watched to review because, that's the job, baby. So it's written and directed by Colin Krolchuk, starring Michael Sheffield, Caitlin Trentham, and Jessica Ambiel. So with all the reviews on the Ministry of Horror, we'll talk about the highs, we'll talk about the lows, and I'll then give you a score out of 10. That's just my opinion. Don't come at me. I bruise easy. So, when teen magician Max crosses paths with the sinister Jester on Halloween night, she must outsmart a supernatural killer whose magic is all too real and whose tricks always end up in blood. Ooh. So, okay, early doors on this. I thought, oh, God, this again. Because you're introduced straight away to a bunch of dislikable characters. It has that kind of cheap look, but not in a way where it feels like there's this unique appearance to it. Like, you could argue that the Terrifier films have a cheap look, but they do also have this almost VHS sheen, this 80s neon splashing of light in certain scenes. It almost feels like you're watching like a dirtied film, not dirty film, but like dirtied image of a VHS that's been badly damaged from like the 80s or something like that. Like really, horrifying gore for the sake of it. With The Jester, we've got bad acting, dislikable characters, just off the bat. Great. We then get reintroduced to the Jester coming out of a box. He has his mask on, which he then rips off to reveal this other version of the mask, which looks like Mr. Sinister from X-Men, that's sort of burnt into his face. Now, I can't remember if he had this look in the first film. I feel it was more of an overall mask look. But it's also playing into that Art the Clown, blackened teeth, rictus grin smile. So that's that. The influences are very apparent. The story, though, as it progresses, I do think is an improvement on the Jester. We follow Max, who is this teen who's very, very smart, doesn't really fit in. She's really intelligent, so she ended up being in the higher classes. She was in the senior classes as a sophomore, I believe. I don't really understand American terms. But either way, she was essentially in advanced classes, so she didn't really fit in with anyone her age, didn't fit anyone in her class. She gets teased and taunted by pretty much everyone. Her mother's horrible to her, so she doesn't really have a place in the world. And when the Jester picks her for his next kill, and he reveals a bit more backstory as to why he does that, so we get some backstory. She ends up tricking him, not through any malicious intent, just because she likes magic. And then that creates this dynamic between the two of a bit of a protege and leader sort of thing. It's not terrible in that regard. The kills themselves are okay. It never goes out of the way to be incredibly over the top. There's a few unique deaths here and there. Very similar though to the Jester in terms of he's doing tricks. He's being put in handcuffs by the police, but then he suddenly appears behind the policeman. The policeman has the handcuffs on them, and the handcuffs tighten and cut the policeman's hands off. Things like that. It's got its unique moments, but it is. I think part of its failing is it's trying to play up to the Art the Clown, charismatic, silent murderer. Because it really is. It really is. This one's a magician. This one's a jester, whatnot. But I think the difference is with Art the Clown, his charisma comes from the mannerisms. Yes, he's not saying anything, but he is saying a lot just with his smiles, his grimaces, his playfulness. Whereas this one, he can't do that because he's just wearing a mask. His face doesn't move, his expression doesn't change, but his mannerisms, yeah, okay, maybe. I think the negatives for this is like the music is very, very forgettable. Visually, it does look really quite low budget. There's not normally a problem with a film being low budget, but you almost have to have a good story to overcome that. You almost have to have good performances to overcome that. Like a film can have a bit of a cheap look to it, but if you've got engaging characters, if you've got a decent story, if it goes to places you weren't initially expecting, or if it goes to the places you're expecting but exceeds your expectations in the execution, then okay, that can work. For this, the performance of Max is decent. Outside of that, it's pretty forgettable. I can't remember what score I gave The Jester. I want to say it was like a 3 out of 10, but this I'll give a 4. I'm going to give The Jester 2 a 4 out of 10 because I think it's better. Still not very good. 4 out of 10 for The Jester 2. Next up, I watched this a couple of weeks ago, but I completely forgot to review it because it sort of left my mind. For good reason, it left my mind. For good reason. Not to bury the lead on the review. House on Eden. It's a 2025 American found footage horror film directed, written, produced, and starring Chris Collins in her feature directorial debut. The film follows Chris, Selena, and Jay, who encounter an ancient spirit that resides in an abandoned house deep in the woods. So I'd heard of this title a little bit. I'd heard very, very mixed things, but this is a Shudder release. Shout out to Shudder. Link in bio. Link for, clicks. Give it clicks through my links. Shout out to Shudder. There is good stuff on there. But I hadn't got around to watching it just yet. And when I did, I didn't realise that this was Chris Collins. Now, I've never watched Chris Collins' content, but I believe on YouTube, she goes by the name, or they go by the name, I don't know, of Call Me Chris. They featured on Smosh before, and I think maybe Funhouse, which used to be a pretty good YouTube channel. It's dead now, but it's brown bread, I should say. But I'm familiar. She did Vines. They did Vines. And Selena Myers as far as I'm aware, is also a YouTuber. I believe that they are the YouTuber that would often get filmed supposedly sleepwalking, and in their sleepwalking they say really out of pocket things and funny stuff and just act really obscure. I personally assume that's all BS. But you know, if it's entertaining to some people, who cares? Whatever. And I don't know who Jay is. Jason Christopher Mayer. Don't know who they are. So I didn't know that this was a YouTuber turned filmmaker type film. And that then led me to think, after another film I watched, hey, let's talk about that a bit. Because also Markiplier, another YouTuber who's very famous that I don't really know of, but I've never seen their stuff. They've got a horror film called Iron Lung coming out next year. Who knows if that'd be any good. But anyway, let's jump into the plot. So, a team of ghost hunting vloggers, lead host Chris, co-host Selena, and cameraman Jay, go on a road trip to film an episode at a cemetery for their YouTube channel. Though their spirits are initially high, Chris upsets everyone when she reveals she has not been driving them to the cemetery Selena researched, but to a different haunted location she discovered on the internet, the secluded House on Eden Road. Through her research, Chris has learned that the house has been long abandoned and that a local woman went missing nearby 60 years earlier. Chris has hopes that its unknown status and the forcibly unscripted nature of the investigation will launch their channel to new levels of popularity. So this is straight away part of the issue. So this is a found footage film. Now, found footage, you can get some great genuine scares, you can get some uneasy moments, but they can also be dime a dozen. They can also be a real chore to get through. And this is a film that's 78 minutes long. This was a chore. The acting in this is terrible. It is really bad. In terms of the plot, it is threadbare because, you know, there's all this banter between them. Oh, okay, great. You know, they're setting up their camaraderie. That Chris is sort of the lead and sort of a bit bossy, and Selena is very sort of Kurdish and childish, but has good humour, and Jay seems to have the hots for Chris, but won't admit it. Yeah, whatever, your typical stereotypes. But in terms of, oh hey guys, yeah, so unfortunately the cemetery that we're not actually going to. Yeah, I found this house and no one's been there before, so it should be really cool. That is literally the build up on it. You know, there's some discussion later on that reveals, okay, well actually the house hasn't had anyone there for 60 years, but it looks as though it's lived in and blah blah blah. But for the longest time, and that's not really a spoiler because that's revealed there, the dialogue is just, well, yeah, we're going to go to this house and no one really knows about it, so it'd be great for us. How have you done the research? And what research have you done? You know, just like, I don't know. It's the script that is really threadbare on this, and it's unfortunate. I mean, I think Chris is probably the standout of the three. They do a good job of displaying fear, but also bullheaded determination to get the footage, and you know their character archetype is interesting enough, performed well enough. Selena, not so much. Jason's pretty wooden, pretty one-dimensional. But not a lot happens in this film, and the things that do aren't really that interesting. And then when it gets to the finale has a bit of a twist moment. But by that point, I just didn't care. There's not a lot that I could say about this. This is one of the lower end found footage films, I must say. I didn't have high expectations because I had generally seen mixed bad things online about this, but yeah, I was certainly glad that I saw that there wasn't too much longer left of the film, but it didn't feel like it. It felt like a lot longer. I'm going to give House on Eden 2.5 out of 10. It's a shame. It's a shame, but the fact that this film's been released by RLJE Films, who have done a few decent releases over the years, and it's on Shudder, I do feel that this may be one of those situations where the popularity has got of the online personalities has got their foot in the door. Maybe the script should have been given more of a once over before. Let's go ahead and make this. Maybe, I don't know. It's bad. It is just quite bad. I have to say. 2.5 out of 10 for House on Eden. And then finally, I got around to watching another YouTuber turned filmmaker. Another one that I don't really know much about, but I believe that they are generally known a bit more in the horror world, and that is Shelby Oaks by Chris Stuckman. Shelby Oaks is a Someone's at the front door. Shelby Oaks is a 2025 American supernatural horror mystery film produced, written and directed by Chris Stuckman in his feature directorial debut, with Mike Flanagan as an executive producer. It stars Camille Sullivan, Brendan Sexton III, Keith David, Sarah Dern, Derek Mears, Emily Bennett, Charlie Talbot, Robin Bartlett, and Michael Beach. I will just, you will have heard that on the microphone. I will just check that whoever is at the door has now gone. I'm not expecting anything, so I'm in the middle of recording. I'm not going to go and answer it. They've got their hood up. They look a bit creepy. Let's just... Yeah, the image that's saved on my phone of them ringing the bell does look like something out of a horror film. Let's just refresh that. Hey, maybe this footage will appear in the next found footage. Shouldn't really joke about that sort of thing. Oh. Nothing there. No one there on the live feed. Video is processing. It'll be available in a moment. Oh, tense stuff. Anyway, while that is loading, so it follows a woman, Sullivan, determined to find her sister, Dern, who went missing while investigating the mysterious abandoned town of Shelby Oaks. Who's taken whatever her name is, Riley Brennan, who took Riley Brennan is like the sort of almost de facto tagline of this film, which I think is an effective little thing there. Why is this footage not loading of whoever is at the door? I'm very intrigued. I think it's probably deliberate. It's not for me anyway, so who cares? So, the story of Shelby Oaks was written by Stuckman and his wife, Samantha Elizabeth, in an independent production. The film was crowdfunded through Kickstarter. By March 2022, it became the most funded horror film on the platform, raising $650K. Principal photography took place in Stuckman's home state of Ohio in mid-2022. The film had its world premiere at the 28th Fantasia International Film Festival, Fantasia, I should say, on July 20th, 2024, after which Flanagan became attached to the project, eventually becoming an executive producer. The film subsequently re-edited and underwent reshoots before it was released at Fantastic Fest in September 2025. The film was theatrically released in the United States by Neon on October 24th, 2025. Okay, so straight off the bat, it's worth noting that this has had Mike Flanagan attached as a producer, executive producer. It's also had a release via Neon. So you've got two big names there. Is it because the film was that good in its initial viewings prior to the reshoots? Is it because Chris Stuckman, again, had become an incredibly popular personality on YouTube? I don't know. I've never watched their stuff. Paranormal investigator YouTubers Riley Brennan, Laura Tucker, David Reynolds, and Peter Bailey, collectively known as the Paranormal Paranoids, go missing while investigating a prison in the ghost town of Shelby Oaks. The bodies of all but Riley are found, and one of the two cameras is recovered, containing footage of a terrified Riley. 12 years later, Riley's older sister Maya is interviewed for a documentary about Riley's disappearance. Mia asserts her belief that Riley is still alive and recounts that Riley often experienced night terrors as a child and believed something was watching her. Mia's marriage to her husband Robert is under strain in the wake of the paranoids' bodies being discovered, compounded by their failure to conceive a child. After the documentary crew leaves, a stranger arrives at Mia's door and says she finally let me go before shooting himself in the head. He is holding a mini DV tape labelled Shelby Oaks. Okay. So, this is a film I had a bit more hype for going into it. Again, not because I know Chris Stuckman, but because the advertising for this film was really well done. The whole who took Riley Brennan, where's Riley Brennan gone, advertising campaign was effective. I knew that it was part found footage, part lost media, along with conventional filmmaking, but I didn't realise quite how much. And by that I mean it's literally the first 15, 20 minutes that is, mockumentary, I should say. And it's the first 20 minutes that's the best part of this film. It's generally shot well. I think the performances of Camille Sullivan, she's really the front and center of this. It's pretty good. Keith David has a small role in this. And the overall story, I think, is decent. I do think it does come across like thinks it's smarter than it actually is, in terms of there's a few twists and turns as the story goes on. It's let down by some kind of crappy looking CGI. I think that was a bit unnecessary, but for the overall story, it very much was necessary. I think if you weren't going to use any form of CGI, or mixture of CGI and practical, I assume, then you could fall into the trap of, oh, well, it talks about hocus pocus, but doesn't show any hocus pocus. Me, 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 me. It's a bit of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. There's ways to do it, and there are a few shots of corner of the eye imagery that do work all right, but there are a few shots that just are just a bit cheesy, like devil dogs and a shonky looking demon hand appearing, whatever. I would have liked a bit more of the focus on the mockumentary aspect, because that is something that I think, when done well, like Strange Harvest, like Horror in the High Desert, it's very engaging. I enjoy it, but in this, it could have been that way. But yeah, I think we spent a little too long in the conventional storytelling element, but there was a lot going on there. It never lagged. It didn't run out of steam in its 91 minutes. I just feel with Shelby Oaks that here's a film that is a bit of a missed opportunity. There's some good stuff there. There are some creepy moments. I think that there is a potential for a decent director in there. But I just feel the script maybe needed refining. I'd have liked to have seen what it was like prior to the reshoots. I wonder if the reshoots added the demonic appearances, because that would explain maybe why it had such a big buzz going into the festivals, and then a bit of a mixed reception post theatrical release. I'd like to see what Chris Stuckman can do next, but I don't think this has made me an early fan of his. It doesn't mean I'm not going to check out his media. I know he reviews, I believe, on YouTube. Never seen them, but for me, Shelby Oaks is middle of the road. I'm giving it 5 out of 10. And that kind of brings us on to the point of YouTubers transferring into filmmakers. So far, does it work? Now, we've talked about 2 films here. We've also got Mark Plyer's Iron Lung coming out. Who knows what that's like? I haven't seen any footage of it, but reportedly it's self-funded and also is going to have the most blood in a theatrical film ever. I mean, that's a tall ask, a tall standard to set there. But on this basis, I do think there is an argument for, just because someone is passionate about horror film, does that automatically mean that they're a good horror writer and a good horror filmmaker? Now, Chris, call me Chris. I don't want to completely write them off. Like I said, I don't know anything about them, and I think their acting was a better part of House on Eden, but overall the story threadbare. Like the dialogue was poor, and I get with found footage you want to have elements of improvisation. Of course, you want to make things feel natural. I think that they really need to have some more bullet points in. If they were going for the ad-libbing improv style, one, I don't think they're necessarily that good at that, and two, you probably need some clearer bullet points of things to focus in on to keep the story engaging. To keep the camaraderie working, or the break down the relationships, more obvious. We moved to Shelby Oaks, and I feel again that there's a lot of buzz about this film, and I do wonder if part of that is because of the names attached, and I do wonder if those names became attached because of the individual and their popularity. It's better. It's better than House on Eden, but as an overall feature, no. I mean, It's hard to say what are the exceptions to the rule, because the rule is very, very early, and I don't know off the top of my head any other YouTuber films of notable discussion. YouTubers transferring into theatrical releases. But of course, I would say that it can be done well, because the Raka Raka brothers, the Filippo brothers, Talk to Me was incredible. And one film that we may or may not be discussing very shortly in the 2025 Ghoulies is Bring Her Back. Again, it's an incredible piece of filmmaking. Are they the exceptions to the YouTuber rule, or are these two films just really bad to mediocre YouTubers transferring into the filmmaking world? Let me know on socials. Comment on the video if you're watching this on YouTube. And are there anyone that I've missed that is worth checking out? Do you agree or disagree on these reviews? Are you also a fan of the Filippo brothers releases? Let me know. Right, Ghouls and Fiends. We haven't got any sort of fancy imagery going on. We're going to just transfer the layout very, very slightly. But we're now going into the 2025 Ghoulies. That's probably all that I can play without the video getting taken down for copyright. Who knows? Who knows? I don't want to tempt fate. So we don't have any set in stone categories, and I probably at should point just have a template document to go, these are the categories, these are the things to be discussed. But it's time for the 2025 Ghoulie Awards. These are the awards that I have looked at every once in a while to discuss the highs and lows of the world of horror filmmaking for the year. We're going to look at a few different categories. We're going to look at the best film of the year. We're going to look at the worst film of the year. We're going to look at the biggest surprise. We're going to look at the biggest letdown. They're going to be the four main categories for things of discussion. So firstly, let's look at the biggest surprise of the year. So this is films that I went into with either no expectations, no knowledge prior to watching, low expectations, but I ended up coming out thinking, holy schnitzel, das was sehr gut. That's very good. Probably butchered that. So, a couple of films first I saw via the good old streaming app Shudder. I always talk about that on the podcast because it's kind of been my go-to for a number of years. Grafted. Grafted is a film I had never even really heard of. It landed on Shudder, gave it a watch, and my God, I was just drawn in. This, I believe it is a New Zealand film. The story of a girl whose father had worked tirelessly as a sort of scientist to try and do a skin graft because his daughter had this noticeable birthmark on her face, and it's sort of the chasing of perfection. And it goes horribly badly. There's elements of bullying and acting out against the bullies, and then a bit of a power trip before going quite body horror in the finale. Speaking of the pursuit of beauty, of course, Ugly Stepsister, which is now on Shudder, but at the time I was able to get sent a screener for it. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Wow, it blew me away. Some people hated it. I thought it was incredible. There's this dreamlike visual tone to it, a lot of neon splashing, but it's set in this fantasy era, the fairy tale world of Cinderella, but from the focus of the ugly stepsister, her pursuit of beauty to ensnare the Prince Charming. It's a bit gratuitous in both violence and nudity. And yeah, the nose breaking scene, the toes being lopped off to fit in the shoe. There's the tapeworm. There's a lot going on in this film, and Second Sight do have a nice looking box set coming out next month. If the budget for the horror collection works, I will look to pick that up. But we've got to make the budget work. We've got to work within the parameters of the budget. That one stuck out to me. Last Straw, also on Shudder. This isn't just the Shudder Awards. Last Straw, a thriller set in a diner of a woman who is just found out she's pregnant. She's been left in charge by her father of his diner. She pisses off all the staff by having a bit of a power trip and is then being pursued by a violent gang looking to get some form of revenge on her. Nice twisty tale, this one. We get a couple of different perspectives. I really like the way that the story went for this. Great acting in it. And then I'd also have to mention Predator Badlands. And I think for me, because of the fact that I went into Predator Badlands not expecting much, I like Predator, but I always, when I think Predator, I think, yeah, I prefer the Alien series. By default, just because they are interconnected, of course, since Predator 2, since the Dark Horse comics. But I've always been a Aliens, especially Aliens, fanboy. And, the last Predator film, prior to Prey, I should say, I always forget about Prey, even though it is very good. The last film prior to that, The Predator, was really forgettable. And Predator Badlands, the idea of a film focusing on the Predator as a protagonist, I just thought, it's like a buddy film like this. How's this going to work? Incredibly entertaining. It's really, really good. It's got a nice mix of comic relief along with violence, but it's done in a way that it gets around being essentially a 12A. When the ratings come up at the start, you think, Predator film's a 12A. What? But it's not killing humans for the most part. There's no blood. There's not red blood. And that's one of the things that gets around the censors. So don't think it's going to be all wishy-washy. It's still violent like a Predator film should be. But that's going to have to be my biggest surprise of 2025 is Predator Badlands. If you haven't already seen it yet, I would recommend checking it out. Biggest letdown. Couple of mentions here. Heart Eyes. Heart Eyes, I went into it thinking, okay, this looks pretty interesting and unique. It looks quite violent. It's got that kind of similar sort of look to the newer Scream films. The 2020s slasher has its own sort of visual flair. It's also directed by Josh Rubin, who I know from the College Humor days. He's done a few films like Werewolf Within and whatever the Don't Knock. I can't remember what it was called. The one that was like a 3-piece film. And he was also in a few other films like Wounding of a Fawn, which wasn't that good. I was quite looking forward to watching this, and no, it was a letdown. It was a letdown. I thought, okay, Josh Rubin doing a slasher, I'm in for this, but no, it didn't really work for me. I didn't like it that much. I don't think this would win biggest letdown, but I do think The Conjuring 4, Last Rites, was not to the same standard of the other entries. It did feel more like it was, in terms of quality, like the spin-offs, where the spin-offs can be a bit hit or miss. For every Annabelle creation, there's an Annabelle. Annabelle creation's good, Annabelle, not so much. The Nun 2, I quite enjoyed. The Nun, give it, yeah. It's all right. I hated it the first time I saw it. It's okay. Yeah, it's not great. But yeah, the Conjuring 1 and 2 are excellent. Conjuring 3 I really enjoyed. Devil Made Me Do It. Did feel like it was going into a bit more of an overtly fantastical world than just the fantastical world that had been set up beforehand. And with this one, I will need to give it a rewatch. I've got it, the 4K Steelbook, part of the collection, of course. I will give it a rewatch, but I remember in the cinema coming out of it thinking, well, the jump scares weren't really as good as they have been in the series, and we're seeing a bit too much of these creepy ghosts. And the finale, not so much. But I do think the biggest letdown actually would have to be I Know What You Did Last Summer. This definitely, to me, felt more like I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer. Quite unlikable characters, pretty forgettable kills, really, overall. The reveal of whom the antagonists were was crap. Really bad. Even the little coda at the end, the epilogue or whatever you want to call it, I think it's coda, revealing a returning character. It was very quickly turned into just nonsense rubbish. I remember when this was coming out, and I thought, okay, it's got some decent reviews, but the roles of Julie and whatever his name is, the other guy, Freddie Prinze Jr.'s character, like being these experts on it, like, well, how do you discuss that without it looking really sus? We find out. I would have to say that in terms of biggest letdowns for me, I know what he did last summer. Potential for it to get that franchise back on track, like Scream 5 and to me Scream 6 had for the Scream series. Missed opportunity for sure. We'll then move on to the worst film of 2025. Now, of course, I mentioned earlier on House on Eden. It's really bad. A late entry to this category for the year, but it has to be mentioned because it's just not very good. It's just not very good. It's rubbish, in fact. I will also have to mention Pig Hill. Pig Hill, I got sent a screen for. Thank you. The trailers for it looked really interesting. I really kind of vibed with the VHS sort of look and aesthetic to it, and this idea of pig people on Pig Hill taking women and blah blah blah, and it looked really uber violent. It's got a lot of SA moments that are just horrible and unnecessary. I mean, they're always unnecessary in a film, but in this it was just like Jesus Christ. It's a really boring story as it progresses. It's quite bad, but I'd forgotten this film existed until I looked at the films that I've reviewed in the year. Mouse of Horrors. Mouse of Horrors we watched on Tubi. The editing on it is poor. The music over times is way too loud compared to the dialogue. The dialogue is inaudible at times. The story is just nonsensical. Is it actually a mouse person or is it a man wearing a mask? It's not really ever clear. It's just the kills are forgettable and terrible. None of the characters are interesting. The CGI that appears at times is laughable. It's a terrible piece of, I wouldn't even call it filmmaking. Shite. Mouse of Horrors is the worst film for me of 2025. And then finally, that brings us on to Best Film. Now, this is a hard one for me to nail down. I think a late push would be The Long Walk. I don't think it's the best film, but I thoroughly was surprised and enjoyed it. I probably should have included that in biggest surprise, but I do think in generally as an actual film, not just a horror film, it's incredibly well done. Excellent performances, great music, great story. Really, really well done. Bring Her Back, I would have to say, is right up there. The only thing that maybe doesn't make it is it's a tough watch. Like the themes in it are around loss and grief, and the extents that we'll go to bring back those that we love, which anyone who's gone through loss knows that feeling. It's the violence in it at times the violence is done very well in it, but it is also quite grim and hard to watch in places. It's one of those films that is excellent, and I do own the Blu-ray of it, but I haven't yet forced myself to jump back into it. Weapons, I think, is a contender. I really, really enjoyed Weapons. I don't think it was a 10 out of 10. I think it was a solid 8 or a 9, really, on reflection. It's really, really good. Great performances, great sort of Pulp Fiction-esque storytelling in that. And I think my winner potentially came out actually in 2024, but really it was properly released in 2025 as far as I'm concerned. Physical media, anyway, it came out in 2025. So I'm going to use that as a get around. I would say a runner-up, though, would be Sinners, because I just went into that sort of thinking, good reviews. Michael B. Jordan's a good actor. I've never really seen any Ryan Coogledge. Let's see what it's like. I thought it was incredible. I love the use of music in it. It's a really powerful film. I'm going to go for Nosferatu, though. Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. Bill Skarsgård is excellent, and this performance is all around. Nicholas Hoult. It's Lily Rose Depp. It's an incredible piece of filmmaking. It's the fact that it just has that visual flair for instantly iconic moments that a lot of filmmakers just either don't have the budget or don't have the scope or the vision to pull off. Whether that be the crossroads on the way to the castle in Transylvania, I'll say, I can't remember if that is where it's set, or the hand appearing over the town as the infection is spreading from Nosferatu. It's brilliant. So for me, I'm going to have to say the best film of the year, although it technically came out in 2024, I believe, was Nosferatu. If you agree or if you disagree, let me know on socials. So, of course, be sure to follow the channel on TikTok. We're really big push on TikTok. YouTube is where the video podcast goes out. Also, the audio podcast will go out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and of course, I mentioned the Patreon earlier on. So search us out on all of those. I do have a Beacons link, which has all of our links on there, and it also has affiliate links for various kind of discounts or items that you can purchase. And as an affiliate, I do earn a little bit of wonga from that. So just consider that when having a look around. But that's it for 2025, Ghouls and Fiends. I hope everyone has an excellent new year. I hope, whether you're celebrating, whether you're not, whatever you're doing, you're having a nice time. Stay safe. And I'll see you guys, Ghouls and Fiends, in 2026. Goodbye.